Welcome to Raising the Bar podcast,
sponsored by the Ashmore Law Firm.
We're your hosts and siblings,
Gary Ashmore
and Lori Ashmore Peters.
Subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. All right, welcome to this week's episode of Raising the Bar podcast with obviously myself, Gary Ashmore, and my sister,
Lori Ashmore Peters.
And today we've got a great guest for all of you. It is Randy Allen, and he is Randy Allen, sorry. We're going to get to know Randy. He's got some stories for us, so let's jump in.
Let's jump in.
We're good with that. Wait, first, hold on. So I was going to talk about the socks. You said he's...
Okay, will you hold on?
Oh, I was going to tell you all my story first.
Okay, but here's how you got to do it.
Go ahead.
You know, if you keep this rolling, and Randy, I apologize, but brother and sister, it's like, whew, sometimes.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
So we have our special guest, and excuse me, but I'm going to get yelled at if I keep chewing my gum. Can I have somebody's hand?
No, not Randy. Brett will do it. Take it for the team.
Okay, so wait. Well, so if that makes it on this, podcast, Randy, being a retired teacher, I'm sure has had to put his hand out many times for gum and who knows what else, and we'll get into that. We'll have to get into the things that you've had in your hand from students. I don't know. But we do notice, Randy, that you do have some very interesting socks on.
Well, I do.
But you got to show them.
My banana socks.
Okay.
And the thought was it kind of goes with my shirt.
Okay.
And also, I just kind of like wearing goofy socks. So I didn't plan on not having shoes on, but when I got here this morning, I was talking with Dawn and some other people in the office, and I started smelling something that smelled very much like dog poo. Uh-huh. And it didn't go away. It traveled wherever I went. So I looked at my shoe, and we figured out with some help that it was all over the bottom of my shoe. So I thought it would not be good to walk all over your office and your studio and everything. So my shoes are in the bathroom area at this point.
That's very appreciated,
Yes.
but I will say better on the bottom of your shoes than in between your toes.
Ooh.
Right.
I've never experienced that.
Oh, no. Oh, you're very lucky. Unfortunately, I've experienced that one too many times when you take a step and you just feel the squish.
Yes.
But I love your socks. At least you had great socks.
I know. It must have been a divine type thing.
To showcase.
Absolutely. Now, I will also tell you, so Gary, your socks are
I didn't wear them
subdued.
today. No, we're subdued today. Yep.
Ooh.
But we need to buy you one of those, like in the old days when the men used to wear the garters that kept the socks up.
No, it's
Well,
good.
they're not supposed to go down like that.
I put them down like that on purpose because it's hot.
Oh,
so yeah,
okay.
let's pull it up.
When you get older, you put them down like that because they're too tight on your leg.
Right. Stops the circulation.
Circulation problems.
All right, but you usually have some really great socks.
I do. And
All
I knew
right.
we were doing podcasts today, so I was afraid that if I went too wild,
Don't be afraid.
I know.
Thank
Don't
you.
be afraid. You're right.
And that's coming from the teacher side of him,
I
I'm
know.
sure.
I hear it.
All right, so Randy, you had a very interesting upbringing.
Yes.
So, tell us, where were you born? Because that's interesting in and of itself.
Well, I was born in Fort Worth, actually.
Oh, that's
Okay.
well.
Not that
To all of
interesting.
you, for all of those viewers that are from Fort Worth, great place.
Cowtown.
Cowtown, which is interesting. The cattle drive that they have right in the middle of Main Street downtown. Okay, but then maybe early on we're
Well, my dad was a music and youth minister.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was a teacher.
Okay.
So we lived in different places in Texas because of my dad's jobs that he would get. It's kind of like coaching that I found out later in my life. You move to different places. But when I was, I believe, 9 or so, we were living in Colorado, and Dad was working at a church there. And we had a family meeting one night, and they told us that we were moving to Zambia, Africa. So they became missionaries when I was a little kid.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Now, how many siblings?
I have 2 brothers. My oldest one is deceased. Then I have a younger sister.
Okay. So the 3 of you are told we're moving to Zambia.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, at first it was Guyana, which is in South America. But at that point, they weren't letting missionaries in there.
Okay.
So they had to kind of recalibrate and look somewhere else where their job description fit and the needs.
Right.
And so we ended up in Zambia.
So what kind
Wow.
of pushback did he get from you kids? I mean, at the age of
You
9,
know,
were you like, yeah, let's move? Or were you like,
I don't
"My
even
friends"?
remember how I
Okay.
felt about that, to be honest.
Okay.
I think the excitement of it was probably something that we felt. So I do remember, some of the things that led up to it, just like packing all our stuff and sending some of it overseas, which ended up not getting to where it was supposed to go
Ooh.
for a year.
Oh,
Wow.
my goodness.
So we had to borrow things after we got there. But I do remember that part, and I do remember all of our family saying goodbye to us at the airport and things like that. DFW was really new. I don't know if most of it might have been Love Field back in the 70s. But anyway, that was pretty much all I can remember about actually getting ready
Getting
to
there.
go, yeah.
How long
Okay.
were you there?
Well, I was there through 11th grade.
Oh, goodness.
And my parents were there for, I think it's 27 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So they retired from there.
Okay.
Okay.
A lot of folks from the U.S. there, or were y'all pretty much it?
There were quite a few, and we lived in the capital city called Lusaka. So there was quite a big population of expats, I guess you would call them,
Right.
in all different service organizations, embassy people, business people. It had only been independent for about, I think, 8 or 9 years at that point when we got there.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So there was
fairly
still
new.
a lot of growth going on and trying to find themselves as a country. So it was pretty interesting.
Okay. Okay, so let me add, okay, so you come back here in 11th grade. Where do you finish your 12th grade year?
Back in Fort Worth.
Okay.
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 We basically were scheduled every 4 years to go on furlough back
Okay.
to the States. And so it so happened that was my senior year of high school,
Okay.
which was a big deal. So that was kind of when people ask me, what are some hard things you've gone through in your life? That was one of them.
Okay. And
bet.
so, college, after college, did you go straight to teaching from college?
I did.
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Wait, first, do you speak the language
I
from
do not.
Africa? Okay, you don't.
It was
All right.
actually, I know a little bit of it, but not enough to carry
Right.
on a conversation.
Okay.
So I'm going to show my
Okay,
ignorance.
go ahead.
Because I bet you don't know what's the language.
Zambian.
No.
I was just guessing. I don't know. I have no
Great guess, though.
That was a great guess, and you said it with such conviction. I thought that
know.
was it.
That was
Afrikaans.
impressive.
African.
Is there a language? Afrikaan.
What
I don't
is
know. What
it?
is the language?
Well, it's actually English, but they
Okay.
only said that because there's so many different ones, tribal languages. They didn't
Oh, there
want
we
to pick one
Okay.
to be the favorite, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So English is the official language of
okay.
Zambia, but people still speak. The one where we lived was called Chinyanja.
Okay.
So my dad learned how to speak it quite well. My mom, not so much, but we never really had to learn it to be able to communicate because most people spoke
English. Oh,
Okay,
nice.
interesting. All
Okay,
right, so back to teaching. Go
well,
ahead.
so back to teaching was so we know that you retired as a Highland Park teacher. Is that where you got your start?
No, that's where I just finished, and that was the last place I taught. Actually, my first one was in Irving
okay.
ISD.
Okay.
I got hired on a Saturday morning, and we started teacher training on Monday.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
so, and I taught biology and was a junior high coach.
So the difference between your Irving ISD and Highland Park, is there a big difference?
There is a big difference, and
Okay.
I taught at other public schools in Texas as well.
Okay.
And I also went back to Kenya and taught there for 3 years with my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taught at a variety of places, and definitely there's differences for
Okay.
sure.
Okay. And then you chose to make Highland Park your last stop along the way.
Yes. What a great experience. I always wanted to be a teacher since I was inspired by my teacher in high school. And so I didn't know about coaching that much because it didn't happen the same way where I grew up. It was just like one of the teachers volunteered to coach whatever sport. So there wasn't big time athletics and things like that in school. It was more of a club type thing, like kind of following the British setup of athletics. Anyway, I was able to take the things that inspired me and then pass those on, through the different places that I've been.
So if your students had to rate your teaching 1 to 5, 5 being the best, how do you think they would have rated you?
Where? Which school?
Let's do Highland Park. We'll do Highland Park.
Well, by that time, I guess you could say I was a seasoned teacher.
There
Okay.
we go.
I do remember some conferences early on when I was teaching, like, you need to get your rear in gear because it's not looking really good. And so by the time I arrived at Highland Park, I think I was a little bit better at what I did. But at the same time, I grew so much as a teacher at Highland Park that it was just a joy to be there. And I hope kids noticed that I was, putting everything into it that I tried to, and that I made a difference. The funny thing is, when people describe my classroom and teaching, whether it's a kid or a fellow teacher or an administrator, never did they say, this was the smartest teacher I've ever had. This was probably the funnest teacher I've ever had.
That's good, though.
It's good,
That's good.
and I'm glad
Right.
that they felt that way and they felt safe to be who they were. And so, there was some of the give and take there. But at the same time, the teacher in me is like, oh, I wish somebody would just say yes. It's the best teacher I've ever had. He knew so much. All of his techniques were just spot on.
Oh, kids don't think that way.
know.
No.
I know,
For
that's
kids,
true.
I mean, you're successful if they say this was a fun teacher. We had a great time, because then they learned. All right, so
Yes.
fun teacher. What are some of the crazy things that you did to keep the kids' attention? Did you get crazy, or
I did get crazy.
okay? They
Well,
allowed
let
you
me,
to get crazy?
Let me share
Oh,
some.
wait, he's looking into his bag of tricks. So
He
hold on.
is.
So
I
those
told-
of you who are, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but Felix the Cat, do y'all remember the show Felix the
Oh,
Cat?
I do.
He always-
the cat,
the wonderful, wonderful cat.
Ba-bum,
Bum,
ba-bum,
bum,
ba-bum,
bum,
ba-bum. I
bum,
don't
bum,
remember
Okay,
the
bum,
so
words.
he reached into his bag of tricks quite often because that's how he would get out of situations. For those of you that don't know about Felix the Cat. So he's reaching into his bag of tricks.
Into my bag of tricks. Look how old this is.
Oh my! Oh,
I've got tape on it.
There we go. See,
I'd have to take
that's
my
it.
glasses off to put them on. But
Nice.
I had a character that I would transform into,
okay.
and this took different shapes in different places I taught. Like the first time I started doing this was when I was teaching in Abilene,
Okay.
and just entertaining at a pep rally.
Okay.
So there was a pep rally for the gymnastics team, and I went out and just was silly on the apparatus. So that's what started it. And then I taught overseas for a while. So it never did surface there, I don't think. But came back to Cleburne High School, Cleburne ISD, south of the Metroplex, and just felt like they needed a spark, So I, without telling anybody, I dressed up like this at the teacher-student volleyball game and was being silly, and that became a thing. So I made up this persona of being Vacation Man, and I wore a Hawaiian shirt and the crazy glasses and the cap and pulled my yellow shorts way up. I didn't bring those.
Okay. All right.
And so just did silly stuff.
Right.
Had contrived competitions where we always won against the upcoming opponent, things like that. So that became what I was known for in Cleburne, sometimes to the point where in Walmart, hey, Vacation Man. And
My
I
goodness.
didn't know who it was.
So you weren't like Professor Proton.
No,
You went vacation man.
as impressive as that. Yes, just vacation man.
Okay.
And so that was a thing there. From there, I came to Highland Park. So the first pep rally I went to there, I thought, whoa, this is impressive, because it was big time and so organized and so well done, and the performances were, top notch, of course. But they had these guys that basically did what I did, had skits and did funny things. And so I thought, well, I guess that's completely done with, and that's fine, because I was getting old, So I transformed it into my classroom instead. So at the end of every unit that we studied in biology, I would sing a little song that I had written about that unit. So that's what it became.
Okay.
Biological Rhythms was what it was called.
Uh-huh.
And I bet your students loved it.
It was fun. It was fun.
It breaks up the monotony of.
So thinking back, I don't remember. I mean, if you're going to ask me who was my favorite teacher, it was always the fun ones. That's the only ones I'm going to remember, and that's probably where I learned the most. I'm not going to talk about a professor or a teacher that actually taught me something and I learned, because they were boring, right?
Did you learn anything?
No, I didn't. That's beside the point. That's for another day. I'm an attorney, aren't I?
Right.
Did I learn anything?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I mean, that is so exciting. But then you also coached at Highland Park. Okay. I believe it was soccer.
Yes.
How did y'all do?
We did okay.
Did you play soccer growing up?
I did.
Oh, okay. All right. So you knew the sport.
Yes.
You were very familiar with the sport. All
Okay,
right.
but I thought Randy Allen took them to state and they won everything.
He did.
And that's not you, though.
That's correct.
What happened?
Well, it's quite a story, actually.
Well, let's hear it.
I was teaching and coaching in Cleburne, growing up playing soccer, of course, in Africa, and then played at Hardin Simmons, where I went to college in Abilene, and then just started teaching and coaching after that. But I got a call one Saturday. I had seen the job opening for a boys soccer coach at Highland Park, and I knew Randy Allen, the football coach, was there.
Okay.
So my first response was, or my first thought was, that would be a cool job to have, but there's no way Randy Allen's going to hire another Randy Allen. So I just blew it off.
Okay.
And the next day he called me. We had a mutual coaching friend.
Okay.
And so he said, would you be interested in coming in and talking about the job? I was like blown away. So that's how that happened, and got the job and was there coaching for 10 years. And then after I stopped coaching, I taught biology only for the last 5 years there. Okay. But so it was very confusing.
Oh, I was going to say, were y'all both known by Randy?
No, I had to start going by Randall, which is my full name.
Okay.
And you always knew the people who knew me and the people who didn't know me as well. So the ones who were friends of mine would call me Randy.
Right.
But others would call me Randall. And emails were entertaining. I never sent some emails that came to me to Coach Allen. Because they were from parents that were complaining about this or that. So,
and that couldn't have been you.
No.
Right.
No, it definitely was for him. And so some of those I never did send and forward to Coach Allen, because it was just going to be more problems.
Yeah. Right.
So we had a pretty good relationship. There were, emails from parents a lot on both sides. When he learned how to forward things, he would forward those to me. And even at school, kids were confused. They came into class the first day expecting to see Coach Allen teaching them biology. And they were like wanting to see, is this going to be a real thing?
Right.
And it's a completely different person. So there was some confusion.
Okay.
Did he teach as well, or he just coached?
He just coached.
He just coached. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And we actually taught in Abilene at the same time.
Oh,
as well.
Oh, wow.
He's from Abilene. He grew up there.
Okay.
He went back there to coach at Abilene Cooper High School, and I was at Abilene High School. And so we actually had known each other a little bit. We weren't real familiar with each other, but had taught in the same school district before.
Right.
Okay,
world.
so
Isn't there a country music star named Randy Allen? Is there a Randy Allen? Who am I thinking of?
I don't know that.
Okay. Well, I may be wrong. I thought there's a Randy Allen. Well, there's an Alan Jackson, and there's a Randy.
Well, he came. He
Okay.
was with. I mean, he was at the time Pat Green. I think it is Randy Allen. No,
It's not. Okay, go ahead. Move on.
that's going to bother me
I
now.
know,
So thank
I
you.
know.
Google.
Google.
Google
Yeah.
it. Let's
Well,
Google
we
it.
have
Right.
someone Googling it right now. We'll have an answer for y'all shortly. All right. So retiring from Highland Park, obviously with your upbringing, everywhere you've been, everywhere you've taught and coached, how do you think education has evolved?
Well, certainly in Texas, it's changed quite a bit. When I first started teaching, my first year was the first year they did statewide testing like it is now for the public schools.
Ah, okay.
And so it also was the first time where no pass, no play came into being.
Oh, that's right. I remember
bet
that.
there are a lot of emails or letters.
Yeah,
from
there
that.
was a lot of new experiences for everybody with that requirement, and also with the state testing that started that is now STAR testing and that kind of thing.
So, do you agree with the no pass, no play rule?
For the most part, yes.
Okay. Do you think
When it first started out, kids would be ineligible for 6 weeks. That was a long time. And
Right.
so they would miss out on most of whatever season they were in. So one of the best things that has happened since the inception of it was to cut back on that punishment a little bit so that they could learn their lesson, let's say, and then also have an opportunity to make up for lost time during that season.
Right.
a lot faster?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
it
it's a
wasn't
great motivator.
Devastating.
I mean, it's a great
I think it's a great
motivator. It is a great motivator.
And kids need to be held accountable, and they
Yeah.
need to be
It
studying.
is, but there are. I mean, kids, especially with the public schools, you have to have the resources, and sometimes there are some kids that may not have the resources that others may have,
That's true.
and it's just. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard.
that's true. That's when you hope that the people involved with that kid have the type of heart that says, okay, here's a situation.
Right.
Not that they give them grades they shouldn't deserve.
No.
But they show some compassion and try to find out, maybe there's some reasons that we need to work through and help that kid with some extra time and things like that.
So, funniest kid story for you as a teacher? Wow. And I won't make you tell us where.
Oh, that's okay. I tried to start looking back and think of things, and a soccer one came up pretty quick, and it actually happened at Highland Park. We were in the middle of a game, and I was standing on the sideline and was going to make a substitution for a player. And so I called a kid from the bench to get ready, warm up. And so he had done that, and they come and stand beside me. We talk about, what I want you to concentrate on when you go in and things like that. And while I'm talking to him, I realized that he didn't have any shorts on. So we play soccer in the winter in Texas.
Okay.
And so he had been on the sideline, had all of his layers on, been sitting in the cold. So when he pulled his warm-up pants off, he didn't realize his shorts
Came
also
with him.
had come off. So he was standing on the sideline with me with just his jersey. Luckily,
Covering
It was
long
long
enough.
long enough to where it was covering his underwear. And I looked down, I said, "Are you ready to go in?" And he said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "Are you sure you're ready to go in?" And he said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Look down." And he realized what was happening.
Oh, my
So he
gosh.
ran to the bench. And of course, by that time, everybody knew what was happening.
Right.
So that's one that comes to mind in the coaching world. Another one actually happened to my wife that always comes to us first when people ask for stories. She was a math teacher for a while, and then subbed after she stopped teaching full time for quite a while as well. And she was subbing when we were living and working in Cleburne. And one of our neighbors was looking for a part-time job. And she said, "Well, just try substitute teaching, because you can set your own schedule
Right.
and say you want to work on this day or that day. So she finally talked her into doing it. So one day they were both subbing at this same school. It was the other neighbor's first day that she had ever subbed. So you remember Scholastic book fairs?
Oh yeah.
It was
Love those.
Scholastic Book Fair Day. So it was a little bit different, but there was, so much excitement. And her kids had gone to their turn in the library, got all their stuff, and had come back to class, and all the kids were excited. And they got free pencils and all kinds of things, So they had spent time sharpening their pencils, and they had them all ready. And they gave them pencil holders where you would just stick them vertically into this holder so they'd be on your desk as a kid. Right. And this kid had gotten 2 for some reason. He had put them in. And she said, okay, everybody sit down. Let's settle down a little bit. And he was the kind of rambunctious kid that anything he did was big. So he sat down real big like this, and his head plopped down. He had put his pencils to where the pointed end was up
Oh my
like
gosh.
this. And he plopped down, and both the pencils stuck into his forehead.
Oh my God.
And he looked up like this, and it's like antenna. In fact, I brought pencils with me to show you.
Oh my God.
So,
Well, don't stick them in your head.
I won't.
But okay, all right,
I won't.
good. Okay.
so the kid, plops down, boom, and he's got pencils sticking out of his forehead like this. And this is in our friend's class,
First time ever
my
subbing.
God.
First time
Oh my
ever
God.
subbing. And he looks up with horror on his face, and they're like doing this, and he's screaming, and she doesn't know what to do.
Of course, right.
So luckily, my wife was like across the hallway from where she was, and she was subbing in that classroom. And she ran and got Dana, and Dana came in, and she said the kid was just sitting there with these antennas.
Oh my God.
And they both just were laughing and trying not to laugh.
Right.
And the kid was just screaming. And so they finally got him up and took him to the nurse. But you could see him walking down the hallway with his antennas sticking out.
Oh my gosh.
Our friend never subbed again.
No, I bet not.
I do not blame
my
her.
gosh.
Okay, that's traumatic.
Yeah,
and
that's
that was a
horrified.
sharp pencil.
It was a sharp
That was
pencil.
a really sharp pencil.
They had just sharpened him.
Oh
up.
my goodness.
Nice and sharp.
Was he bleeding all over the place, or
I don't think so.
don't know? Okay,
Because they were
all right.
still in.
stuck in his head.
So,
Oh my gosh.
I don't
Wow.
know.
Oh my goodness.
That's one of them that I usually think of when people ask me for stories from school.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it didn't happen to me, I was kind of involved with family.
Right.
Oh wow. Okay, so our podcast is Raising the Bar podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So share with us what you feel you do professionally with your teaching career or personally. How do you raise the bar?
Well, that's a broad question for me, and I can look at it a couple of ways. As a believer in Christ, I kind of consider that the bar, and
Right.
ultimately trying to live a life that will at least try to arrive at that bar at some point. And so that's a big part of the way I've lived or tried to live and talk and teach and just be who God had designed me to be. But I was inspired by my high school PE teacher. And what inspired me was it wasn't just a time to goof off and play and just the kids that were good at it enjoyed it. He actually was professional enough to present it in a way that was different, to where it wasn't as competitive, and if you're a good athlete, you'll do good in PE. But it was at a level where everybody improved and everybody got good at whatever it was we were doing for those units.
Right.
And it was obvious that he put a lot of thought and work into teaching PE, which was surprising.
Right.
Right? Because that's not always the situation. It's roll the ball out and y'all have fun and I'll sit here and do whatever. But that impressed me quite a bit. And it showed me that whatever it is that you are interested in, you can make it something that makes a difference in the lives of somebody else. Mm-hmm. So I was always in love with sports growing up, and found out I was good at soccer, in high school. And so I didn't know that with teaching, if you wanted to be in sports, you also had to coach, and how it all worked in America.
Right.
So it took some getting used to. I didn't imagine, I had to coach American football, which I never grew up playing when I first started coaching. Wore the big elastic band, polyester coaching shorts and everything.
Yep, they are. That's what they were.
But I loved it, even though I didn't know what I was doing. And so I always tried to have the inspirational part of what my teacher had given to me as part of who I was as a teacher. And so that's what I tried to create in the classroom. And it also is what I try to live by in my personal life. I have 3 daughters that are all adults, and my wife and I raising them in that same fashion was, something that was important to us. But, people I come in contact with, I want to kind of have that same way of being, I guess you could say, as the 2 words that I like to use are, I want to influence, and I also want to, at the same time, be a light that is reflected to other people. Trying to think of the 2 words that I usually use, and I'm going blank.
Well, but what I will say is, obviously, when we started the podcast, you had mentioned that you are considered, your class and your style, you were the fun one. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for me, that's a true testament to how you have raised the bar with everything you had just said, and wanting to influence and be there for the kids. I mean, that's the true testament, is when the kids considered your class as the fun one.
Well, I appreciate that. And I finally thought of the 2 words that I was going to use. Getting old, you know what I mean? So it doesn't always come back so quickly. But the 2 words that I got challenged to come up with 2 words that describe how I live my life. And inspiring delight were the 2 words that I came up with. And so that's how I try to present myself, and not always that way. You can ask my wife.
But when you can present yourself more days like that than not, then that's the goal. That is the goal.
Yeah. I will have to say, though, thank you for your service, because I know teaching is a thankless job. I know that teachers in Texas right now, they're struggling. They obviously need to be paid more, and they need to have more benefits. Yeah. But obviously, it was a calling that you took on, and you did it great, it sounds like. So yes, thank you for that. It's amazing.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being on our Raising the Bar podcast.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you think we want to add? Oh, wait, I want to ask you, who's what's the show, the soccer show? Ted Lasso? Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so what are your thoughts about Ted Lasso being a soccer coach?
I have a T-shirt.
Okay.
With his cartoon face on it.
Uh-huh.
And it says, don't be judgmental, be curious.
That's it.
So I like that quote from the show.
Right.
It's a cool show.
It is a cool show.
The concept of it, the American football coach going over to do what he did, I thought was genius. I didn't know it would be popular.
Right.
But, the actors and actresses are awesome. So they did a good job with it.
For me, it and I know we're not here to talk about Ted Lasso, but it had great messages within the entire show. Have you seen it yet?
I never have.
Oh my gosh, you've got to watch it.
You've got to see it.
You're going to get stuck and hooked, because it is amazing. It's got great.
But so does it have, does each episode have a beginning and an end to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I need shows that have beginning and end.
Kind of. I mean, you go through
There's
the journey.
Some continuation.
Right, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Right.
There's continuation as they build the characters.
Okay.
But it's got good messages. It's
but
very
it's a
much
comedy.
so. Inspiring. It is.
Okay.
It's a drama comedy, whatever they'd call it. But
Okay.
yes. It teaches you great life lessons. In fact, your kids would probably enjoy watching it too.
Chances are they probably.
I've already seen it.
they've seen
There's you probably need to screen it for your kids.
A little bit.
Depending on how old your kids
They're
are.
older.
Yeah, no, they are older. That's right.
Yeah.
They're teenagers and one's about to
Yeah.
go off to
They can-
college.
they can
so
handle
they
it.
can
Oh,
handle
yeah.
it. Right. So what would be advice to your younger self?
Well, that's a great question, and didn't really get into this, but it would be to spend more time with your wife like you did your job.
Okay, nice.
When we went back to Africa to teach, our kids were in elementary school and younger, and I had gotten so much into my soccer career that I had neglected my family.
Okay.
So part of my testimony on that was I feel like part of the reason that God sent us back to Africa was so that we could restore our marriage to
Reconnect.
where it would be a better situation for everybody, not just me and my job and my wife taking care of everything else.
Very
Okay.
nice.
So have you made it clear to your daughters that whoever they meet, they better raise their bar and treat them the way they need to be treated, correct?
I hope so. I definitely can always do better. And
Right, okay.
hopefully they got some inspiration from it.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Absolutely. Well, sounds like they've got great parents, undoubtedly. Do you remember any of the biology songs?
But, well, we had one unit on classification, and we're started with what kingdom are all the living things in, and then it gets more precise as you go
Do you
through.
remember all of that?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Like scientific names, like humans had the scientific name of Homo sapien. And
Oh, there we go.
so
Got it.
everything has names.
Okay.
So that whole unit was about how to do that with all living things on characteristics and stuff. So we as humans are part of the Chordata phylum in the animal kingdom. So have you ever felt yourself lying in bed thinking, what if I were another phyla instead? Shooting poison into fish like Cnidaria do. Have you ever wished you could do that too? Let's see, I wonder what it's like to infest an intestine. Eating up the food that should be digesting. Tapeworms can do that in me and you. Have you ever thought you could do that too? Oh, Chordata, you're so stinking awesome. I get all the tingles, and it's you that cause them. You're the only phyla that can play ping pong. Yes, you are. Oh, Chordata, you're where we belong. So that's
Oh
That
my
was
God,
great.
that was
Okay, you got a
great.
good voice, though, also.
Well, I grew up in a musical family.
Oh, there we
So
go.
My dad
Okay.
was a music minister and
Okay.
all that kind of stuff.
That was
And
great. So you would teach your kids those songs, or would you just
I would just sing it
you
for
would just
them.
sing it.
Yeah.
That is
oh, very
great.
cool.
Wait, ask them what is Chordata.
Well, I was just going to ask you that.
No,
What-
ask them. 'Cause
Oh,
I
yeah.
wonder what their answer is. 'Cause
Oh.
I know they don't know.
I have no idea what a chordata is.
Well, it's the group of animals that have a spinal cord.
Is called a chordata. Four-legged, two-legged, anything?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
As long as you have that
Huh.
spinal cord going through the dorsal part, usually, of your body, then
Right.
you are part of the Chordata group.
A
So you have
chordata
to
group.
use that word
I'm a chordata.
properly
Can I
5
say I'm a
times
chordata?
today.
5
like,
times?
Like what would
5
not
times
be?
in a sentence today.
What would not be a chordata? Let me see if you're check your understanding here.
Snake.
No, it has a backbone.
I can think of a few people that don't have backbones. You're an
Snail?
anti-chordata.
Snail is correct.
Where would you pull snail from?
Well,
They're
it's
a
got to be something
mollusca.
that
Mollusca.
A
yeah.
mollusca.
I mean, it's got to be something that can just kind of gel.
Well, I'd have said an oyster or a clam. What?
That's
Not a
true.
snail.
That's true.
A snail. Interesting. I don't know why you pulled that out, but okay.
You know, we have them all over.
All right. Okay. What else do you think we need to get
Okay,
into?
wait. I do have one. I do
This is
have another
good.
question.
And
Biology.
Okay.
B. Biology. You obviously probably did lots of experiments
Mm-hmm.
in class. One experiment that just went horrifically wrong.
Oof.
There's quite a list, I think.
Oh! And was
there
it
was-
because of you or a student?
Usually me. But, I mean, because you can expect stuff from students in the
Sure.
lab.
Right.
They're always going to try to get away with whatever. Actually, when I was teaching overseas one time, we were doing a lab studying yeast and how they grow in certain situations. And you can relate it to life, like that's how things rise when they're baked.
Right.
And this is the process that happens with fermentation and all that kind of stuff. So we did that with test tubes. We'd put different things in them to see which one produced more carbon dioxide.
Oh.
And so we have to leave it back there for a while. Well, I forgot they were all back there. I didn't clean them up for like, I'm going to say weeks.
Wow.
At the end of school, some of the boys came and told me, Mr. Allen, you know when you forgot to clean up those yeast products in the back of the classroom? We would go back there and sip on some of those test tubes and drink some of the solution that had fermented.
Fermented, of course.
I said, are you kidding me? And they said, no. And one of them was the principal's son. And I said, was it nasty? And they said, yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Created your own beer. Hold
I know,
on.
that's
You could
what
have
it
been
was,
right.
basically, without all the extra ingredients.
I
Right.
mean, oh my God, who would look at a test tube that you did a test in and think, oh, hey, that would be a great
taste
idea
it.
to sip?
Teenage boys.
Teenage boys, right. There you go.
Thanks to our sponsor, the Ashmore Law Firm.
We specialize in probate, estate planning, family law, guardianship, personal injury, and civil litigation.
You can find us at ashmorelaw.com.
Or by calling us at 214-559-7202.
Again, that's ashmorelaw.com.
Or calling 214-559-7202.